everyone, welcome. My name is Maddie Hendricks. I am a classically trained coloratura soprano, and today I would love to talk about low notes for the high soprano. This is just my thoughts and experience at the moment, and I'm growing, always growing as a singer, so I'm excited to talk more about this. If you're a singer out there and you would like to try some of these exercises that I'm demonstrating today, you are welcome to do that. But I always say every voice is special and unique and different. So if something doesn't work for you, that's okay. Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to say before I begin is that in an effort to make this video accessible to singers who are blind like me, I will be verbally describing what I'm doing if I'm doing anything visual. So if I'm putting my hands on my jaw, I'm gonna put my hands in front of my ears, right where that jaw joint is. So if you're wondering why I'm telling you I'm putting my hands on my jaw, that's why. Okay. Today's topic is low notes for the high soprano, and I think that as a high soprano, low notes are so important. I feel like I, as a young singer, actually had a background in CCM, contemporary commercial music. So I was always kind of singing in a lower register, right? Commercial music is a lot of lower singing compared to, say, operatic, more classical singing. Singing in the more classical style, whether you're in choir or whether you love to listen to opera. But I remember, even as a contemporary singer, always being insecure about my low notes. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't hit that A flat, I can't hit a G, like, oh my gosh, I'm worried, like, what is gonna happen, like, I can't sing the song. But in my journey, it was something that I just kind of had to keep working on, and so this is my experience. So I started out singing contemporary music, and then choir, high school choir, led to my love of classical singing. And I noticed that the rep that we sang in choir, and then the rep that I got into as a soloistic singer when I started to explore classical singing soloistically, was quite a bit higher than the music that I had originally sung, commercial music. So I found myself getting into this, what I would say is kind of a bad habit of not, but it's understandable, not fully embracing my lower register, because I was singing high all the time and I was like, oh my gosh, these high notes are so fun, I'm exploring my high voice, but I was neglecting my low notes. And my voice teachers would say, I wonder if you could just if you just explored your low voice a little bit more, what would that do for your high? What would that do for your high notes? And so this encouraged me to keep exploring and keep working this area of my voice more fully. And it really had some benefits for my high voice and my high notes, specifically in the development of body and color in the sound in my high voice. And it seems kind of counterintuitive, but I'll explain a little bit more about that later, about how that actually anatomically works. Now, I did want to mention, as my background in commercial music kind of showed me, and then switching over to classical, that the commercial music and musical theater, modern musical theater, low voice does differ from the classical voice, the way a lot of classical singers approach or sing down low. So, but classical singers must have a strong lower register as well. Yeah, so some of the differences that are pretty obvious when you listen to a classical singer, a classical low versus a commercial low voice, is more speech-like, right? I'm saying, hey, how are you? Right? These like speech-like kind of sounds where I kind of exercise my low that way, versus more rounded, more spacious vowels. Ooh, ah, wah, wah, that kind of sound in the low. It's the same pitch, but a different way of going about it. Having said that, the classical low voice should not be, in my experience, should not be swallowed or over darkened. We can go a little too dark with our low, and that's kind of what I got into a habit to sometimes, but kind of had to work through. The low voice does need to be bright and forward in the mask, how I like to think about it. The other difference that you might notice is a difference in vocal registration. So the pop sound is going to have a more chest dominant kind of sound. So ma 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 ma, that kind of sound, where the chest voice is very present in the sound. Now, in the classical low, we're going to use the chest voice. The chest voice is going to be present, but the sound is going to be, my voice teacher in undergrad was wonderful, and she would say, imagine that it's like wrapped in this Christmas present wrapping of head voice color. So instead of saying, oh, oh, I would go, oh, oh, ah. So where it's not so much chest voice to where it's kind of sounding like a pop singer, but it's going to be wrapped in the head voice. And I'm someone in my singing who explores everything. I like to explore, so I like to have all kinds of tools in my toolkit. So for me, a thorough vocal warm-up is really key. And as I mentioned before, low notes help high notes. We've got muscles in our larynx, the thyroarytenoid muscles in our larynx, touching the front of my neck. This is the thyroid cartilage, okay? And the thyroarytenoid muscles are the body of the vocal folds, and they help us sing in chest voice. They shorten and thicken the vocal folds, and that's what helps us sing. That's what gets us into our low voice. And so this strength in our TA muscles is what is really important, and I think that it helps, at least for me, my experience as a high soprano, is keeping that solid anchor throughout the voice is really important. So it's not that we add weight as we go up and have too much TA in our sound, but we let the voice shift. And I'll talk more about this when I talk about doing exercises for the middle voice and the high voice. It's going to be different than a pop singer would do it, go into a belt voice, but we do want to have that strength and still that anchor, as I said. So, some exercises I love for low notes. I do a very thorough vocalization usually, and this includes both body work and breath work. So making sure I'm stretching, reaching my hands up and straight up in the air, and then sometimes I'll do some yoga to get my body stretched out nice and relaxed, and then also some breathing exercises. After all of this, I like to start in my middle voice and work low. So, lip trills. Lip trills, working on lip trills in the lower register. Lip trills are basically, if you're a singer, you probably have done this in choir, your voice lessons. Yeah, but a lot of singers know what the lip trill sounds like. So, one of the most simple exercises with this that I have done in my low voice with the lip trill is I'm going to start on a comfortable pitch in my middle voice and then work down. And then as I come down to the bottom note, I'm going to sustain that bottom note. So this is going to help me with not only breath control and feeling the breath support, but also strengthening that TA, that thyroid muscle. So yeah, and so that's it feels very simplistic to me, but sometimes it's really good to go back to basics and just do a really simple exercise. Exercises don't need to be necessarily super complicated all the time. And let's see. So let me keep going. Yeah, and sometimes I have a G, sometimes I don't. Oh my gosh, it's kind of, again, something I'm a little insecure about, but let's see if I have a G actually. Barely. It feels a little uncomfortable, so if it feels uncomfortable, definitely check something out. So for me, what I feel a lot of times is the back of my neck wants to tighten. So if I'm singing, and it wants to kind of feel, it feels a little uncomfortable in my throat, or it feels like a little bit like unsteady in my support, I am going to just do a little circles, very small circles with my head, to make sure that those muscles in the back of my neck are nice and released. And I didn't want to say that if it feels uncomfortable, sometimes I'm unintentionally making my low notes big or loud and trying to force them out. And if you're high soprano, that's okay. That's not your bread and butter, like low notes, right? But it's so important, again, to strengthen them. So for me, they shouldn't feel forced. They shouldn't be really big or loud, but they should be present, and they should have resonance. So for me, I like to keep things narrow and slender, and one of my voice teachers would say, keep it really narrow and hummy. So imagine you're humming, and then we can go into vowels. Mi, mi, me, ma, mo, mu, mu, mu. My mouth right now, my lips, the front of my mouth, is not very open at the moment. Moo. That kind of changes the sound, and it depresses some things. So I feel like that's not how I like to sing low notes. I like to keep them really slender and hummy, and not a ton of pressure, not a ton of squeeze. So again, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, not too dark, not overly darkening, and keeping it forward and resonant. I like to put my my fingers on my cheekbones, so like right at the top of my cheeks, and keep the sound kind of in there, in that area. But low notes, as I said, are really essential for the high soprano, and I think it's really important. But I also try not to worry, because, as I said, I'm not a mezzo, I'm not an alto, I'm not a bass. So my voice teacher and I joke that low notes are not something I'm going to get paid for, those kind of notes, but my special skill is singing high, and every day is different though. So sometimes I have lower notes and sometimes I don't. And when I don't have low notes, I always wonder, what is my high going to be like? Sometimes my high is I can really pop up to some high notes if I have a lot of low notes. But my experience is that going back and forth between low, middle, and high voice in my vocalization really helps. And by the end of my warm-up, my low voice is really warmed up and strong. So another exercise that I like to do for low notes is this exercise, staccato. So we're gonna start on middle note, not too low, but in the middle voice. So this is beep, 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 ba. Beep, beep, ba, ba, 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 ba. And as you can hear, a little bit of vocal fry got in there. Vocal fry is the lowest of the vocal registers. And I personally, I know that there's some controversy on this sometimes, but I personally like vocal fry. I don't use it all the time, but if it wants to sneak into my low notes every so often, I kind of play around with it. Not that it's gonna stay there, but it's kind of a tool to help me kind of feel like I've got some closure there in my vocal folds. So another thing that I like to do for my low voice is, and I talked about this in my breathing and breath support video, ways to get connected to the lower body to help us sing low notes really nice and easily, is connecting the body with these primal sounds, whether you're thinking about a belly laugh, like you've heard something hilarious, and it's like you're thinking about laughing, or you're thinking about kind of a cry or a sob. These sounds can sound very weird to the non-singer, like, oh my gosh, why, how does this help with singing? But yeah, it helps me with singing. So let's do a crying down on a low note. It doesn't need to sound pretty at this point. It's just warm-ups. So my chest voice is very present down there, but again, we can have different colors of that sound. So there's this beautiful Mozart aria that I sing, where I'm not going to sing it just like I do, I don't know, Carrie Underwood song. That's maybe a more chest voice dominant sound that would be appropriate for pop voice musical theater. Wrapping that sound in a little bit of head voice color. This is sometimes an advanced skill. We have to kind of work on this, but it's really fun to explore that sound. So again, back to the Mozart aria. Beautiful Mozart aria that I like to sing. It goes like this. Making sure I'm really accessing that chest voice, but making sure it's not too heavy. Gosh, it's so beautiful. A vowel that helps me really get into my keep the voice wrapped in the head voice as I'm coming down is the ooh vowel. So ooh, and then we can go from ooh to oh. Really creates a nice sound on there that's really appropriate for classical, the classical singing style, or you might say that also it might be also appropriate for the Broadway, the legit golden age musical theater sound. working low notes is really fun. I love it as a high soprano, and I'd love to share more exercises and updates as I continue to work on my low voice. It's just, if you're a high soprano and you also have been working on your low voice, let me know what you do. And I hope that this video has been interesting and fun. Thank you guys so much, and stay tuned for more videos.